Yeah, yeah.
Attention all shoppers, attention all shoppers. There's a cleanup on every aisle. Target is targeting your kids.
They put a target on my back, but they targeting your kids. They don't even need to ask, cause you all know what it is. Yeah, that's why I keep it strapped, and I'm always by my bands. This agenda gotta stop. Yeah, you know we gonna win when they target, yeah, they targeting. Target, yeah, they target kids. Target, yeah, they targeting. Target, yeah, they target
You know that target's that wrong, trying to play with these kids. It's the mayor of Megaville, I'm preaching again. You know that LGBTQ done went too far. You know they cutting these kids, they leaving trannies with scars. Why they pushing the agenda, promoting sexual genders? I'm only rocking with Bruce, don't rock with no Caitlyn Jenner. You think that gay shit gon' get you paid? Yeah, we gon' see. It's Mar-a-Lago 2024, we trumping, baby.
They put a target on my back, but they targeting your kids. They don't even need to ask, cause you all know what it is. Yeah, that's why I keep it strapped, and I'm always by my beds. This agenda gotta stop. Yeah, you know we gonna win when they target, yeah, they targeting. Target, yeah, they target kids. Target, yeah, they targeting. Target, yeah, they target kids.
Heard the news story, targeting kids. They going after our youth, and yeah, they do it like this. If you ain't mad yet, well, then you better be pissed. Let's protest until they close and they ain't gonna be missed. Why they got pride shirts in the kids' clothing section? Why they trying to mess with the kids and give misconceptions? They manipulating minds and making evil impressions. Got little boys tucking out by time they teens got depression.
We need to clean up on every island inside this door. Satan resides. Wash it with the blood of Christ. It's needed here, so don't think twice. Dating with a Satanist, we all know this is the end. God is coming for revenge. Target is targeting.
They put a target on my back, but they targeting your kids. They don't even need to ask, cause you all know what it is. Yeah, that's why I keep it strapped, and I'm always by my beds. This agenda gotta stop. Yeah, you know we gonna win when they target, yeah, they targeting. Target, yeah, they target kids. Target, yeah, they targeting. Target, yeah, they target kids.
What's going on? What's going on out there? I know it's not simply Sunday. This is Wednesday. This is the full service with Mr. Full Service. And tonight we're going to be talking about a very sensitive subject. The reason why the subject is so sensitive is because it's actually something that hits near and dear to a lot of people. People have dealt with this or been around this, experienced this for themselves. So, what we're going to be talking about tonight is grooming. We're talking about grooming children, this agenda that's been spewed for decades. But now, of course, with modern technology, social media, things like that, we're starting to see it come full circle. So, we've had a lot of conversations, and we have conversations with people on the right. I've had conversations with people on the left. I've had conversations with people who identify as uh, a member of the LGBTQIA plus. Don't judge me. It seems like we're adding something new to that every day. Now, of course, now it's going to be T2S, which means two spirit. But you know what's funny? Thinking back, a lot of people probably don't even know what LGBTQIA plus actually stands for. So the LGBA part of the LGBTQIA stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and asexual. Now, those are the ones that actually point toward a sexual preference. Of course, you know, lesbian, that's two women. Bisexual means you like both women and men. And gay, of course, is usually two men. But to be honest with you, lesbian is also under the umbrella of gay. Bisexual is under the umbrella of gay. So it could all really just be G. Yeah. Random thought, but that's the way my brain thinks. Asexual means that you don't have asexual, like you don't have any feelings of a sexual urge or a sexual nature toward anyone. In other words, you are the ultimate in abstinence. Like you have no sexual desires whatsoever for anything. Now the TQI, the TQI is it's a strange thing because, like I said, that's not actually a sexual preference. So TQI stands for trans, queer, and intersex. Now the last part of that, intersex, is actually a genetic mutation. What that basically is, like hermaphrodism and things like that, means that you are born with maybe both sex organs. You may have double chromosomes. You might have XX. You might have XY as well. As a matter of fact, there was a runner. This was a famous case. An Olympic athlete named Caster Semenya. Now, Caster Semenya was born intersex. So they had to actually test her when she won, and she had both chromosomes. Now, the problem with that was they said that it gave her an unfair advantage. Now, like I said, she was born intersex, which means both sex organs, but she was raised as a woman. So yeah, that's where things get muddled. But see, that's where the T tries to slide in. So if you've ever had a lot of conversations with people who identify themselves as transgender, usually the conversation devolves, so to speak, to, well, what about intersex people? And I was like, you're talking about literal, a genetic mutation. When we're talking about transgender, so transgenderism is gender dysphoria. Whether or not people like that or not, that's what it is. Transgenderism is gender dysphoria. What that means is you do not feel comfortable in the sex that you were born with. They've even tried to change the language. Now the language is you were not comfortable in the sex that you were assigned at birth. People, I'll tell you like this: you were not assigned a sex at birth. You were not assigned melanin count at birth. These are just things that are. Usually, if you are born with a penis, you are a man or a male, excuse me. If you are born with a vagina, you are a female. It's very simple. Works really well. But like I said, there are genetic anomalies like intersex, who are the exception to the rule. Now, transgenderism, as I said, is just the belief that you are not comfortable in what you were born with. So they'll feel like I was born, I was assigned boy at birth, but that is not how I feel. I feel like I was a girl. I was supposed to be a girl. Here, here's the problem. So a lot of people don't know one of the godfathers of the transgenderism and transgender movements was a man by the name of John Money. So John Money did some really horrible experiments. So I'm going to tell you. So John Money is known for the Reimer twins scandal, the John and Joan case. So the Reimer scandal, a little boy had a horrible accident. 22, he was 22 months old, uh, by the name of David. David, it was David and John. So anyway, so David had a horrible accident that messed up his penis. Well, the parents had heard of this doctor, John Money, who specialized in fixing those problems. And they take their child to see John Money. And John Money convinces them to fully transition this little boy into being a little girl and just raising him as a little girl. Now, of course, in our heads, we're like, man, that doesn't sound right, right? There's a reason why it doesn't sound right. John Money didn't do it for the well-being of the child. He did it as an experiment because the little boy had a twin. Like I said, the little boy was David, and he had a brother by the name of John. Well, the parents listened to the advice of John Money, transitioned their son into their daughter, and they named her Joan. Raised Joan as a girl. Now, John Money kept seeing, of course, John and Joan. What they didn't know was what John Money was actually doing behind closed doors. John Money was simulating sex acts with these children, having them simulate sex acts with each other, and he was photographing and logging all of these results. Then he falsified the outcome of the case. What ended up happening was Joan or David never felt comfortable as they were. Like they never felt like a girl. They always felt like something was wrong. Something is wrong. I don't feel like I'm supposed to. Well, as I said, the man ended up doing all these experiments with the brothers. With the brothers. Um, I'm sorry, but by the way, their names are David and Brian. Sorry, excuse me. David and Brian, but they call it the John and Joan case. But anyway, the name is the one brother is Brian. Of course, the one who had the accident was David. Well, anyway, so David never felt right. Always felt like he was supposed to be a boy, which he is. So, of course, that in most people's rational brain should tell them that there's more to being a male than just physical appearance or outward appearance. It isn't just an outward appearance. It's not just one thing we can look at. It's not just your chromosomes. You are a boy because you are, period. That's just how it turns out. You are a boy because you are. You are a girl because you just are. It's there's no rhyme or reason that should tell you how to be a boy or how to be a girl. There are many boys who have feminine traits, just like there's many girls who have masculine traits. We actually used to have terms for those. We used to call them tomboys, or the guys, we used to call them, like, Bernie Mac says it. They used to be called sissies, punk, all that other stuff. Now, of course, we're not going to sit there and be calling people that, but it's the way we grew up. So anyway, so with the John Money experiments, what ended up happening was both of the brothers ended up committing suicide. Brian committed suicide in 2002. David committed suicide 2 years later. And then, of course, John Money also did experiments on people who were actually born intersex. Like if you were born intersex or as a hermaphrodite, as it used to be called, um, they did all these different experimentations and things like that on them. He actually wrote a book called An Inquiry into the Nature of a Human Paradox. This was published in 1952. He's also the man who coined the phrases as gender role, gender identity, sexual orientation, uh, gender maps, body and mind. He outlined variables of sex, such as, of course, assigned sex and sex rearing. He is one of the people who started that phrase, assigned sex at birth. He also went into external genital morphology, internal reproductive structures. This man was making all these claims. He actually had another book called Transsexualism and Sex Reassignment in 1969. And it was absolutely manipulative because he changed the results, like I said, of the Joan John case in order to push his narrative. Now, like I said, John Money was just the tip of the iceberg. This was almost like the beginning of the whole thing. Then you have a man by the name of Alfred Kinsey. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Alfred Kinsey, but Alfred Kinsey was an educator sociologist, psychopath, out of the University of Indiana. Now, Alfred Kinsey just had a movie about his life just a few years ago. I think it was Liam Neeson who actually played in the movie or just titled with his last name called Kinsey. Now, Kinsey was another one who did all kinds of experimentations. It's sick to hear this, but unfortunately, y'all are gonna have to hear this. So he is the father of what's known as the sexual revolution. He claimed that babies could orgasm and there was benefits to child rape. Yeah, you heard me correctly. This is who Alfred Kinsey is. Now, what's funny is we have statues to this man at Indiana University today. Today, Alfred Kinsey has statues up. Now, I'm going to read you some of this. He was credited for authoring pioneering reports on human sexuality that radically upended the prevailing view on sexual relations between humans. Kinsey's research work is said to have influenced social and cultural values, not just in the United States, but across the world. This man stimulated babies, infants, into having what he referred to as orgasms. Infants. And I do mean infants because I'm talking about babies under the age of, I think it was 24 months. That is who Mr. Kinsey was. And he is actually a big advocate for pedophilia, incest. He actually said pedophilia and incest benefit children. Check this out. In Kinsey reports, arguably the most scandalous one was about young children as young as infants observing orgasm. All orgasms are outlets and equal between husband and wife, boy and dog, man and boy, girl or baby. For there is no abnormality and no normality. Not only did Kinsey hypothesize that infants are orgasmic from birth, but he also suggested that incest relationships and pedophilia benefit children. In his writing, he asserted that there was no proven medical or other reason to forbid incest or adult child sex. Quote, children are sexual and potentially orgasmic from birth, womb to tomb, are unharmed by incest, adult child sex, and often benefit thereby. That's disgusting. That's sick. Now, this is Alfred Kinsey. So, this is where the transgenderism and the sexual revolution that everybody keeps talking about. If you've noticed, now in schools, we are starting to pervert and sexualize children as young as elementary. So you're not sure what I'm talking about here. I got you. So I've had these conversations for the past couple months where we were talking about these books that people were allowing in schools. Let me read to you a couple of these different ones. Lawn Boy, Gender Queer, All Boys Aren't Blue, Boy Magenta, Drama, It's Perfectly Normal. Let me tell you something about It's Perfectly Normal. It's Perfectly Normal is not perfectly normal because it's actually targeted toward 8-year-olds, in which it's talking about anal sex, in which it's talking about when the vagina becomes aroused, it gets moist and the clitoris gets hard. Yeah, that's targeted toward children. That's perverse. Absolutely perverse. As a matter of fact, on Simply Sunday, I played a video from a pastor who started to go to these school boards. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. I want you to hear this because it's really important to know that this stuff is actually going on. So I got you.
I want to define something for you tonight. Definition for pervert. It means to lead someone away from what is considered right, natural, or acceptable. This book has been permitted in 6 schools in the Wake County public school system. This book explicitly details anal sex, blowjob tips, a response to a letter about gay sex, and BDSM. I'll read just a little bit of this perversion. So he bends me over the bed and drizzles some lube on my ASS. I made him wear a condom, of course, and he starts pushing it in. Use your lungs to suck, not your lips to pull. You're not trying to yank the DICK off with your mouth. You're trying to make it feel good. Use your tongue. Doesn't it make you cringe? You don't like it. You don't want to hear it aloud. You don't want anyone to read it. The question today is, who is the pervert that's allowing this to be purchased and delivered to our libraries? Come out from wherever you are. Who are you? You don't have to answer that question. We know who the perverts are. There's one political party in this country that supports this junk. It's the Democrat Party. You all have signed off on this, and it needs to be removed from every school.
Your time is up, sir. Our next
County.
speaker.
That right there goes back into the Kinsey philosophy that everything should be normalized. Sexuality and children are sexual beings. Like I said, elementary school kids. This is Keynesian philosophy. And this goes even back to John Money. Now, these books are being it's crazy that we live in a day and time that we are actually having to argue to remove this perversion from our public schools, from our public libraries. But it's almost like that was the design. See, when it was just the LGB, they were actually out there trying to advocate for equality. They just wanted to be able to get married. They wanted to be able to be on their partner's insurance. If their friend or if their companion or their mate was in the military, they wanted to be able to, of course, get benefits just like everyone else. That happened. It happened. And look, there's this lady named Lawless, Jessie Lawless on TikTok. She even spoke about that. She was like, "What else? What else do you want? Equality. That's all it was." And we were talking about your sexual preference. We're not talking about lifestyles. We're talking about this is a sexual preference. That is who you choose to sleep with or be attracted to all this other stuff. That's your sexual preference. Now, of course, it's like it is morphed from just a sexuality or things like that to absolutely everything about a person. It has become their actual whole identity, not just their sexual identity. And then, of course, you have what I refer to as the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse is the TQI. Now, TQ more than the I. The I, like I said, that is a genetic mutation. That's all that is. But the TQ, most people don't even know where the Q comes from. Queer theory. So there is actually 4 people right now who are actually called the progenitors, so to speak, of queer theory. They are, and I quote, Michelle Foucault, Gail Rubin, Pat Califia, and Judith Butler. Now, queer theory is postmodernism. Michel Foucault is called the godfather of queer theory. He advocated for the abolishment of age of consent laws. Yeah, in other words, he believed that children could consent to adult relationships and sex with adults. He actually spoke about an incident with a village I don't like to use the term village idiot, but he was a very old man. Well, this village person actually propositioned a child for sex by giving the child treats and almonds. And he actually was advocating that it was actually the child's fault because the child may have seduced and enticed, mind you, an 8-year old might have seduced and enticed that man. And I'm just like, that's sick. Then you have Gail Rubin. Gail Rubin is literally the one who wrote the manual on queer theory. He argued children can consent to sex and coined the phrase cross generational relationships. Tried to change the terms. Actually, Gail Rubin compared pedophilia to spicy food. Yeah, said it was as normal as liking spicy food. Sick. Then you have Judith Butler. Judith Butler argued using queer theory to claim denying incest and legislating against it, states were actually enforcing heterosexuality. That was her platform. That was the platform that she stood on. So you have Michael Foucault, you have the Gail Rubin, you have Pat Califia, you have Judith Butler, then you go back to John Money, you have Alfred Kinsey, then you fast forward today and you have Alan Walker. Alan Walker was just in the news a few years ago. This was the Old Dominion professor who coined the phrase MAPS, minor attracted persons, and said that that should be legal because you cannot control who you are attracted to. In other words, if you are a pedophile, it is not your fault that you did horrible and despicable things to a child. That's just your sexual preference. And it should be okay with everyone. As a matter of fact, they tried to get themselves included onto the LGBTQ flag. That's why I call that movement, which is the TQ, is more of a Trojan horse. So when people are talking about grooming children, this is where the thoughts are coming from. The fact that you have the godfathers of transgenderism, you have the godparents and the progenitors of queer theory, and they all, each and every single one of them, advocates for pedophilia, children being able to consent to sexual relationships, consent. That is where it comes from. And no, if you identify as part of the community, I don't think that everybody is like that. I don't think that you're advocating for this on a regular, but I need you to know this is where it comes from. This is the hill that you're standing on. This is what people are trying to get normalized. Look at what's even going on today. You can't children can't go into a store and buy alcoholic beverages. They can't go into a tattoo shop and get inked up without their parents' consent. Yet you think that it's okay for them to have drastic surgery without their parents' consent. In other words, the ones who are actually advocating for, and I call it mutilization, they call it gender affirming care. And you're saying that a child can consent mentally to that. It's like a slippery slope that you really don't want to go on. Because once you open that door and you start to say that, oh, children can consent to this, children old enough to consent to that, that's when that Trojan horse is going to sneak in and bite you in the butt. Oh, well, if they're old enough to consent to this, then yeah, no. And understand, it's not just them, it's anybody in the Roman Catholic Church who is actually doing this to children. Brother, I believe you should be drugged behind wild horses, quartered and drawn. I am. I'm still for public executions. That's it. So listen, that right there is what we were talking about. So you can't have these kind of conversations on the Clock app. You can't talk about these things on the Clock app because they will censor everything you said. Now, I'm going to give you your research material because I don't want you to just take my word for the things that I've said to you. I want you to go research it. I want you to be able to go look for yourself. So, you're going to look for Michel Foucault, Michel Foucault, Gail Rubin, Gailrubin, Pat Khalifa, Patcalifia, and Judith Butler, JudithButler. Of course, John Money, Alfred Kinsey. These are all the things that you should be researching, the things that you should be looking up. That way, you have a better base to stand on. So it's so funny today. It's a I had a conversation with a client of mine. Now, my client is homosexual, and she was like, "I don't want to identify with the LGBTQIA plus." She was like, "Because it's not what it was." You're right, it's not what it was because it fulfilled its mission. It fulfilled its mission. The LGBT or the LGB fulfilled its mission. Equal rights, equal pay, no discrimination or no visible, no discrimination in the workplace. Everybody's going to be discriminated against. Let's just be real. Let's be real. But then, of course, the Trojan horse comes in with a whole list of other demands. And that's where the problem starts. So, all right, y'all. Much love. This has been the Full Service with Mr. Full Service. We will be back simply Sundays. Come check us out. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And of course, we're going to try to get our Twitter up and going too. So much love, y'all. Thank y'all for stopping in. Hope to see y'all soon. Y'all have a good night.